You are tuned in to the heart stopping, pants dropping, house rocking, earth quaking, booty shaking, Viagra taking, love making, legendary Going Off podcast with RC, Muse, and special guest this week. Fully evolved Mark of Twitter and TikTok fame.
Sure, let's go with that. I'm honored that like the one you chose to do for this was it's a foreshadowing for what we got coming up.
Oh, is
in case
it?
You weren't aware. Yes,
I'm not. All I know is it goes into 10th Avenue Freeze Out, and that's not on board in the USA.
The Viagra taking these street bands gonna be on the one we're talking about.
That's true. That is true. But that's going to have to wait a second. First of all, because I don't know if anyone's recognized the voice just yet.
Again, my name is Mark. I put out music under the name of Fully Involved, but realistically, if you've seen me from anything, it would be just very specific classic rock memes on TikTok. The first thing I did that like really got a little bit of attention in the whole algorithm a couple years ago was a meme where I pointed out what people do with the title track of Album That Shall Not Be Named Until Later On, and how they use it for other dumb reasons, which we will get to. Yeah, nice kind of wrapping around moment for what we got going on now. I'm glad the fixations can serve me every now and then.
Did you also start the I Got the Old Man's Car?
Okay, so yes and no.
That's also going back a few years, but that might be a TikTok meme that someone might know about.
It's very tricky describing TikTok trends instead of just showing them. Like,
especially years after the fact.
It's like ancient history.
Everybody's using this Billy Joel audio, y'all. You'll have to believe me.
Wait, remember pirate anthems? Remember that was the
sea
thing?
shanties.
They were
because 3 TikTok years is like 20 regular internet years, which is like 100, which is 150 real world years.
I was on TikTok today and I heard someone using the Into the Thick of It sound again, and I haven't heard it in like over a year, and it seriously felt like I was transported 10 years into the past.
Oh yeah, that was just that weird moment where like in the start of 2021 we were like, fuck it, backyardigans.
And
we
it
need
was like
something to
3
cope.
songs of theirs were big sounds for a minute there.
Okay, so I need to give context for the old man's car thing. So from specific Bruce Springsteen memes to specific Billy Joel memes. I'm covering the gamut here. So there was this dance, shout out Max Smith, who's the person who did that. It was this like sort of tongue-in-cheek TikTok dancified thing with the song Zanzibar. So there was this old audio of, I want to say like, it was maybe in the Vine era or maybe a little bit before that, where it was like,
what y'all get for number 12?
I got 18. Oh, I got 9.5. I got Abraham Lincoln. For some reason,
and so I took that.
Hey, what y'all get for number 12?
I got 18. Oh, I got 9.5. I got the old man's car.
And then like 2 weeks went by, and I was like, okay, that was fun. And then I woke up, and 70,000 people had used it. I didn't come up with the joke template. They just thought of it themselves, where like and this was in, like February 2021. And just like all of a sudden people were taking this, Billy Joel meme where it's just kind of like random and being like, what'd you lose during COVID? My family, my friends, my virginity.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh no. And it's like the people using this are like really young. I'm kind of uncomfortable with what I've accidentally started right now.
I'll admit this. I may have overestimated the discussion length of what I wanted to bring to the show. Talking about the Eminem, his record label suing a creator that Mark knows that I don't, for making a rap about Eminem rapping about cats using a AI voice generator thing. And these videos are all over TikTok of like Joe Biden and Donald Trump and all these.
I've seen especially like a video game where it's like Biden, like the presidents play Tekken, and it's like Biden playing against Trump. Yeah.
Now, whenever I send one to my friend, he always has to comment about how like this is pretty scary though, because it feeds into like deep fake technology of like, oh, we're going to be able to recognize. So it's like now with them suing again, not for that exact reason, but for the you're likely gonna make money off of this. Eminem didn't consent to his voice being used in this program.
I mean, don't you have to do that for like a GPS or whatever, right? You have to pay Snoop Dogg if his voice
That's right.
styling is in a GPS,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So it just got
forgot
me
about
thinking, like, if they didn't sue, could we get a single on the Hot 100 of someone using someone else's voice to make a completely separate song that they had nothing to do with?
Now, I think the open secret is they're already doing that, just being lazy assholes and going like, no one cares, it's all digitized, we normalized it all with auto-tune anyway, so if you hear your favorite artist's voice sound a little digital, oh no, it has nothing to do with the fact that we have technology that can just, digitize Drake's voice. Like, yeah, that whole fucking dance album, yeah, he was at his fucking home in Calabasas the whole time. That was 40 and a couple of producers just kind of throwing together, some loose vocals from songs and just kind of turning it into an album, and, who's gonna say anything about it? You know what I mean? Like,
if I had to throw a little bit of optimism in here wherever I can, like as far as like, people actually being fooled by an Eminem thing, like, because like it would be one thing if it was like 20 years ago in like a random MP3 you find on LimeWire or something where like there's there's no artist page, it's all just in a vacuum. But if a song were to pop up, like in order for people to be fooled into thinking that that Eminem's on there, it would probably have to have the Eminem like artist tag on there. And I imagine
you would have that old school thing, like, where it's just like, how people would misattribute songs, like, oh, Weird Al did this song and that song. Yeah. So like some song could get huge with an Eminem verse on it, where it's just like, oh, I guess this is at the top 40 now because it's getting so many plays from so many people listening to it. And then it's like, oh shit, Eminem's not actually on that song. That would be an insane thing to happen.
But my question is, like, would people actually be fooled if like the actual attributions on like Spotify and stuff aren't there?
Well, like I said, I mean, people have been fooled by, thinking that some Bob Marley song was by somebody else just because, or like thinking every Jamaican, you know what I'm saying, is a Bob Marley song.
Thinking every parody song is Weird Al.
Right. Like that used to be a norm. I don't see that happening nowadays because, like we said, like I think people have gotten more acclimated to being like, wait a minute, who is this? Where I can Wikipedia this really quick. I don't remember him having a song with Ludacris. Like yeah.
Yeah, it would take some like next level elite hacking to actually like put comma Eminem next to your song there in order to fool people.
Yeah, and also like I said, I mean, maybe the technology will improve at some point, but like right now, it's just so obviously like not sounding like a human would talk, like that is just like, yeah, that's the thing with like when I saw the John Oliver clip where it's just like, okay, that doesn't really sound like a person saying a thing though,
Yeah, we're still in the novelty phase where like, for example, like another thing I think of with the Eminem thing is that there's like this trend of like Eminem is a 12th century warlord, or Eminem is in an anime.
Yeah, or music from the 14th century or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm real shady, I'm real shady. And then, yeah, like...
My personal favorite example of this, since we're still in, in the fun novelty stage of this, is that there's this channel on TikTok, of course I'm bringing back to that, called Thrashachusetts, and they basically do the presidents as like niche hardcore scene people. And so there's just like all this stuff about like straight edge, and like Kamala's in there as an undercover cop, and like it's and Donald is like going to like India to try to unlock his like chakras or something. Like it's just like he's like totally like Ronald Reagan is like harassing the merch girl, and like just like these ridiculous kind of sketches and stuff. And obviously, this is the worst that AI is ever going to be. And I don't want to can't open the can of worms too deep as far as the AI art ethics debate, because ooh boy. But it's the worst it's ever going to be right now. But the point it's at right now is still cute. It's still cute.
Yeah. And I guess it really does come down to you're potentially going to make money that Eminem could be making. That's the problem. Like, that's where we're going to have to stop you, because, you're potentially taking money out of our client's pocket.
That's how this system works. Like, you can't really get them on the deeper philosophical meaning of what it means to rip someone off. Like, no one cares about that. Like, it's just...
No.
Yeah. We threw away that discussion with designer, like...
Oh my god. I was walking around last week and someone seriously had fucking,
Panda?
Panda. I heard Panda blaring out their fucking car windows, and it was just like,
Wow.
Is this 6 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, it is
7.
it's
Yeah,
7.
2016 has to be. Yeah.
Because remember that song came off the back of freaking Life of Pablo.
Yeah.
Oh
that
my
weird-
god. Fuck. Yeah. Jesus.
It's crazy. It's weird thinking that 2016 was a simpler time, but
Yeah.
Yeah. That. Oh man, because he wasn't president yet, right? Like.
No, not yet.
getting there.
Well, he was only president for. Oh, he wasn't even. Yeah, he wasn't president in 2017. Yeah, he wasn't actually in office. Wow.
We've been doing this show for way too long.
Dude, 6 presidents.
I gotta bring it up, just so people are aware of the dynamic here. I have technically been watching both you guys for a solid decade, so
Yeah.
We've been going off. We haven't been on since episode 1.
yep. I found you from video platforms that don't exist anymore, and websites that shouldn't.
Now you just got me thinking about all the money that used to be able to be made on Blip. It's just not the same anymore, man. We didn't know how good we had it, RC.
Folks, Kofi.com/going off.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/I'm going to give you one support. All right.
That kind of revenue is what gets you guys discussion topics like what we've got in front of us right
Look,
now.
it's like PBS. We are supported by viewers like you. It's just the way it is, you know. And I think a better world for it, honestly. You know, remember as much as we like to throw all this love on the past. Oh, remember when Blockbuster was in charge of everything and they get to say, you know, what movies you didn't get to see? Like, no, fuck that. We're in a new age. It's a new millennium, and we now get to, you know, choose what we want. And if today is what's being requested, then let's get right to it.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I know RC already said it once, but the website's so nice, I got to say it twice. It's Ko-fi.com. It's ko-fi.com/going off. Thank you. GOINOFF. And that is how you can get an album reviewed on a future episode of the podcast. And today we've got a mixed bag. We've got a listener-submitted album, and we've got a classic rock listener-requested album. So naturally, the boss is going to have to be the main event. Clearly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we got
Yes.
Mark here in the first place. Let's talk about the boss. We didn't have him coming
Yes.
on here because we knew he was the number one, the world's biggest Wolf Quan aficionado.
I'm the head of the pack. You know? So, little peek behind the curtain of what's been happening in real time this morning. So, I, had everything prepared for Born in the USA, which we're going to get to. But it occurred to me, wait a minute, is there going to be a second album you guys talk about today?
You couldn't have that much to talk about with just the boss alone.
Of course not. I mean, there is a lot to talk about, but listen, I don't want to just be like a little kind of later, that would be a weird structural thing. So I'm like, hey, let me just stick around for the long haul here. Here's a listener submitted one. I got personally kind of curious about that because, I'm a DIY artist myself. I just got the masters back from my next record. Might plug that later on. And I'm thinking like, okay, I want to get in the headspace of someone who's being looked at critically here. It can't hurt to have like a third opinion here from someone who's not
Never.
being, paid for it. So let me just throw this on all 22 tracks.
22.
And see what happens. Ooh.
You saw what happened, all right.
Welcome to the party.
And we've done I don't know exactly how many, but I want to say we've done probably around 10 listener submitted albums by now. We had to have done at least 10.
That feels right.
And I just
It's all right.
I was just talking about this earlier with Neb. I just wonder, they had to have heard those episodes where we reviewed other people's albums. And I really
the first
wonder.
one we did was called don't forget this or something like that.
Yeah,
It's
I was
just
actually going to say, the very first time we ever reviewed a listener-submitted album, you specifically were like, we're never doing this again. Take note of what happened here. Let this be a warning. don't do this. Like, don't follow this person's mistake. And people were like, no, I am very willing to follow that person's mistake. And sometimes we have actually got lucky. I hate to say it's a surprise, but, you know, with people from, like, meager, you know, they don't have a lot of, like, support in their equipment or anything. You don't really
so you don't want to go
expect.
too hard on them.
Exactly.
I'm on my blue snowball, you know? We all gotta get by.
You never know what you're going to expect. I fucking saw a picture T-Pain shared of his recording equipment when he recorded Bartender, and it was seriously not much better than what I've got going on right now. It was a laptop in front of him, a desktop mic, and that was about it. So you never know. But this wasn't good.
I'm trying to empathize as, you know, a DIY guy using his resources the best he can, and I did record what I got coming up in a bedroom home studio, thanks to my producer buddy David. But the thing is, the album was still mastered, and I think there's like certain things of polish and care you can put on it regardless of circumstance that can, you know, make it ready for prime time.
And the thing is, there are parts that do sound like that was done. So
there
that
are
kind
points,
of threw me off, right?
It's Wolf Quan with The Forbidden Forest, and it's available on Spotify. And RC, I had to look back on the Ko-fi page to actually find out that there are some lyric videos available on YouTube. So I was able to go back and read along to some of them because they're not on Genius, or at least not to this album, which is a little frustrating. It is over an hour. I took notes on the Bruce Springsteen album first, and then got to this, and was like, oh, this is even longer than that one. Oh,
By a lot.
Yeah, by almost a half hour long. So I was like, okay, let's, you know, dive in. And I will say, it's 22 tracks. They're not all songs, so I didn't, you know, I think maybe 3 of those tracks weren't songs. I only have notes for 19.
4 are like, 4 are...
Kinda.
Mark helped put this into perspective, because whenever we run into an album that we look at it and we think this is going to be kind of rough for us, because it's not fun to get into an album that's not that great.
Independent people, because it's like, you know, they don't have the resources. Like a rich person, a rich artist, they can take it on the chin. They'll be fine. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
It's what people pay for, also. So people pay for...
And we are nothing but honest.
Mark made a very good point with the mastering being a bit iffy.
Non-existent. It really does sound like on most of these songs, as far as like, you know, our main guy here, that like he just got the instrumental from somewhere, or either just like made it separately in a DAW, or like got it from, or like got it from someone, and then just like overlaid the vocals on top of it in Audacity without any kind of mixing or like effects or anything.
Because there will be parts with like singers or something like that, and there'll be like a little auto-tune or something like that part, and I'll be like, oh, that kind of sounds a little good. And then he starts and it's like, this sounded like it was recorded in a completely different studio. Like,
Yeah, and I point out specifically, and, you know, obviously this is jumping around a little, but like there's 2 songs with choruses by this guy, U.S.A. And like those are like legitimately decent choruses recorded on a very obviously better like microphone and fidelity and stuff. And like with those songs, it's like the instrumentals were decent too. And I'm like, I think I'd rather just listen to more of this guy.
The biggest issue I took wasn't the mixing so much. It was the very awkward, timid delivery.
Yes, absolutely. Where it would just be like, oh my
so
God,
non-committal.
It's like if you would have just done a second take and actually like sat in the pocket of the groove of that flow. Instead, it just sounds like, that sounds like the first take. That sounds like the first take. You know what I mean?
I wondered after a few songs, I was like, would this have just sounded better? Would this have been a better song if it just flowed better? There are some instances I have written down that I don't think that would have helped exactly, but it couldn't have hurt.
I mean, if we're going like track by track here, I think a perfect example is the opener "Stress Me Out," where like, you know, it's got kind of like it's got this decent kind of soundscapey kind of intro, and then of course it pulls the sample of the "I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore," and then smash cut to "Why you gotta go stress me out."
Yeah, sounding completely unstressed out.
Zonked even like he took every bit of CBD I have on my desk right now and just chugged it.
I was getting stressed out.
It's like, and the thing about it is, I was listening. I was like, "Wait, is he British? Like, or is that the guest person?" Because it felt like that British accent was there for at least 2 songs and then left. Was that just me, or?
I noticed
Look, man,
that too.
If you're British, you legally have to tell us, okay?
I picked up on that too. I wasn't really sure who was who for most of it. I didn't take note of like the features, unfortunately. I was just kind of, you know, I was just vibing, man.
Yeah. I am going to say the first track was an interesting one to have a feature on because Lord Hen, the guy that did a guest verse on it, that actually sounds like it was recorded on a Discord call, like lag and all.
Oh
like,
my
it was
God.
It was like for all like the, you know, the sort of acknowledging of the recording quality that we're giving here, like that was even a step below that just on a sonic level.
That was the worst quality.
And also, nobody should ever use the word notif as a rhyme. I'm just throwing that out there.
What was that about? What?
Were you getting hints of like rhyme zone to some of it?
Absolutely. And here's the thing, not just rhyme zone, but like you know, like the kind of rhyming where you basically turn into Yoda.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where you're putting the adjectives and verbs in the wrong places in order to make the rhyme fit at the end.
Like, dead to me you are. Bad I was feeling. You know?
Right. And the thing about it is, okay, so like the hook, what does he say there? He says, "It feels like a fight is brewing. The other side is pink." Did you catch what that was? This barely rhymed, and like it would be okay if he could articulate the sentiment in at least a clear way, because I'm trying to hear where the rhymes are and at least like what his intention is, but the 4 bars, like just the first part is just so weak, and I remember the second verse being okay, but it's just so sloppy and floppy with the flow, where it's just like it's like it is sub Capadonna, and that is bad, where it's just like, oh my God, do you know, like 1, 2, 3, like, come on now, count with me. Like, you know what I mean? We're just like, come on, man, you've got to hear how this doesn't fit. You know, it's like one of those things. It's like, are you just like, is it a thing where it's like, you're just so, you know, anxious about it, or it's like, fuck doing a second take, but it's just like, dude, your art is clearly suffering and you have to hear this.
That's another thing that like DIY things can't really excuse, is just basic kind of just basic flow and like things that only get fixed within your head.
Yeah. Like you can absolutely do a second take and figure out how that flow works and do it. Like that isn't reliant on necessarily. Like you can do the take, and if you maybe mess up a little bit, you can do a little bit of editing. But for the most part, you can figure out how you want to do that. You know, that's not something where it's like, oh, well, we just couldn't bring in the big enough sound and strings and woodwind to make that sound. Like, no, that's just a preparation thing. You know,
the chorus of "Stress Me Out" says, "Why you gotta go and stress me out? Every time I see you, every time I speak, it seems like a fight is brewing. The anger's at its peak. Why you gotta stress me out?" It's like I'm reading it, and again, that's, you know, it's fine, you know, for what it is, but it's the very, very laid back, like you were saying, taking all the CBD, couldn't be more relaxed vocal, and it was just like, you gotta pick it up a little bit.
And, you know, in a way, I almost would have preferred if it was like the pink, because that would have at least been an interesting word choice. Because,
what does that mean?
I feel like every line on this record feels like the most obvious tell don't show way of describing it, of describing a feeling, you know? And so like the whole song is just like, you're stressing me out, I don't like you. And it's just like, it's just saying what it is. Instead, I would be surprised if there was a single genius annotation you could put on this, because it just is.
There were a couple words that came up that I was like, I legitimately don't know what that word means, that I could use a genius annotation for that. But again, that kind of feels like maybe rhyming dictionary came into play, which again is fine. You know, I'm not saying you can't, but sometimes it's just obvious, you know.
I think rhyming dictionary should be used to, like, you know, find a word that you like. Oh, I didn't think of that word. Oh, I could use that in this context. Like, the context already has to be able to be workable. It can't sound like you're working backwards, you know? Yeah.
Yes. I got a Rhyme Zone bookmark. There's no shame in that, but there's got to be some tact to it.
Seeing as that there's 22 tracks, I feel like some jumping around might be needed, but
yes.
I will say there are a couple I have quotes from, so I'm going to have to, you know, hang on those for a little bit here. Canker Sores. I wrote down that it's incredibly frustrating, this song in particular, because the verses actually start to go somewhere, and they get interesting, and then they stop, and then you have to hear that long chorus again. And it's not a good chorus. So for the first verse, it goes, fuck all your feelings, they can't help but have a narrative, a self-perpetuating class system we inherited. Blind as a fetus can only be an understatement. Monopoly on the conversation, we can't say shit. And then immediately goes into
never poor.
And it was like, oh man, this again.
What I put is that, like, it's hinting at some substance, but I'm just too caught up on the aggressive R enunciations to dig any deeper, you know?
There is some points on here where, it's like there's emphasis that kind of takes me out of it. Like, I think there's a song later where it really is like, it's one of the songs that's more interesting that it kind of takes on, like, racism. And I was like, okay, now we're talking about some real shit. And the whole chorus is like, we got to take action, but it's like, tonight. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So
revenge.
in Canker Sores, I'm trying to see what his points are, but it seems like it's like almost commentary. You know, it's like middle of rich and poor. They're giving us canker sores. You know, like. And I kind of like the nice low key guitar, but I was trying to figure out what really is the thesis statement like of his verses. Is like, okay, so, you know, I was kind of getting here. He's like, I live in the suburbs, so my feelings are not important. The rich are glorified, but the poor are always reported. And if the world don't want to see the importance in me, then I don't want to endorse this fucking order, at least. You know, so I was like kind of getting what it, you know, like, oh, you know, middle class suburban kid, where do I fit in the system? And it seems like it doesn't really, you know, isn't really thinking about me, you know, and like, it's one of those things where it's like, it was trying not to be judgmental directly of, like, you know, either's focus, right? Especially, like, at least I felt with the wording, right? Like, it wasn't trying to say, like, oh, why does everyone just care about the poor all the time? You know, like, I felt like it was trying not to do that, right, with its wording. But, you know, at the same time, I was just like, okay, so, like, you know, like, what is your statement then? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I kind of got by the end of the song, you know?
You were kind of doing, like, a live message along of songs that were particularly notable, Mark, and it took a while, but you had mentioned to me the 2 minutes of someone just kind of crying and breathing. What struck me as weird that you didn't message me about the Rest in Peace Teeny track.
Okay, here's the thing about that was playing while I was driving.
Okay.
And we'll get to how this album played a part in the errands I went on this morning.
Oh, good.
But,
yes, I'm curious about how it was like a passenger in the car and what role it played.
So let me say first and foremost with this Rest in Peace Teeny (parentheses memorial). I actually, here's the thing, I do relate to the feeling that he's putting across in this song because at its core, on paper, it's talking about how this family cat you grew up with sort of represents like the last remnant of your simpler family life. You know, my cat Ethan, you know, I got him when I was like 7 and he lived up until like 2-3 years ago. And then by then my mom and stepdad had already fucked off to the East Coast. So I didn't even get to see him. So I relate hard to this feeling, and I would love a song about this, but the problem is that you can try to do that while sacrificing basic sonic tastes. Like, like, when you break down what this is, it's a cat meowing for 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, for 2 minutes,
yes.
while a sad violin is happening, and then just like a depressed monologue happens at the end. And it's also like way too early in the album to have something this non-musical happening.
I don't know how this is the third track, and we're already just it's a minute of nothing but meowing. Then the violins come in at minute 2. Then
it's
for
like,
the
no,
third
you can't
minute,
do this.
everything drops out, and you just hear like wind blowing, and you have that poem at the end of it. It's like this either needs to be at the very end. This cannot be track 3. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. And like I said, it's like, I'm fine with dedicating something to your animal,
yes,
but get to the fucking point. Because if you're just building all, like, you can't have this build up for just an animal. It's the same thing with that Shannon song. It's like, there's people going to be listening to it like, oh, what's this about? Oh, like, because when it becomes this long, then it becomes, oh, just an animal? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you just get to the point that it's like, oh, I've had an animal that meant something to me too, you get to that emotion quicker. But when it's this much buildup, you're like, oh, that was just about the cat? Like, you know? Like,
yeah, it's like, I would have been with you otherwise.
It was just pure sensory annoyance, and then like 30 seconds of, oh, I get you.
Yeah,
and that's not how this kind of thing should. You should leave them with a good taste in their mouth about the stuff you're going through.
Yeah, because right now I'm annoyed at this cat.
So the next track, I don't really have anything particularly notable to say about. I just want to say, aside from that, there's like,
want to say anything about.
I just want to say, that the dude's literally talking about punching drywall. And also, this is the first song actually that has like a decent chorus from this U.S.A guy, and that was real, and the beat's really well produced, and like this is what where you're talking about, RC, where like there's parts of this that like were clearly taken from something else, or where like there is something to build on here, and you didn't.
Like, as the song started, and it felt like he was talking about something that was important to him, someone that was important to him, I was like, oh, so this song is about, but then it's like, is it really? Like, did you get that as the song went on, that it was about the animal?
It just feels like an island, like just because it's following this like conscious sort of hip hop song about classism. And then, I just want to say is just like kind of whining about being rejected or broken up with, I think. So I think there's really no mind paid to any kind of thematic sequencing here.
Yeah, I don't think there was a through narrative.
And then there was a breakdown, parentheses, intro at track 5.
Which is just 2 minutes of someone crying quietly with no musicality to it at all.
But then at the tail end, after the 2 minutes of someone like just sounding like they're breathing, slowly turns into crying. You're kind of like, oh, is something happening? The picture slowly being painted. Then it's just like you just hear, over badly recorded audio, by the way, I told you to pick up your room, and then like a door slamming or something like that, and that's the end. And I'm like, oh, okay.
This is the point in the album where I am at the end of my driving and I start walking into the supermarket, and I'm very grateful right now that this song was the last one that came on before I got out of my car, because if this came on in my AirPods, I wouldn't be able to sleep this week.
I skipped the ending of the song, so I didn't hear the clean up your room
you
part.
Didn't miss anything important.
I was like, no way am I sitting. Like, I was like, is this all this is? Okay,
no
cool,
way.
I'm out. And I don't know how that's an intro to Little Lamb.
Yeah, what?
Like, how are they related?
Get it?
We've hit the horrorcore portion of the record, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God, the horrorcore suite. It comes in, and I'm like, you know, trying to give this benefit of the doubt. Okay, he's getting his Tech 9 on, whatever. But like, the story is so nothing. Where it's like, oh, it's you know, it's kind of this guy who's like, I guess this woman was pregnant and she regretted it, so he cuts off her head because she was pregnant, but then he says something which vaguely alludes to maybe that person was his mom or something. But then the hook is like, Mary had the little lamb. And I'm like, you're going for the ironic, you know, cutesy thing when something horrible has happened. But I'm like, I just don't understand why this scenario is happening.
This is not Mockingbird, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not taking a song about a depressed sex worker seriously from a guy who uses the word floozy.
He also...
Like it's the 30s.
And also, like, the line in the chorus, I sacrificed her, Abraham. Don't fucking hashtag rap this. Okay?
What's happening? Because
I sacrificed her, Abraham. What are you doing?
No, you can't. You can't.
Because listening to it, my brain was going like, I sacrificed her Abraham? Like, because I was trying to figure out, like, did he sacrificed her Abraham? Like, whatever her Abraham would be. Because, you know, this is what the problem with these hashtag things, like, unless you make it clear, you don't know what the fuck the structure of the sentence is.
You know, on the note of, like, how this was following me in real time, this was hitting very weird in the Ralphs. Like, there was, okay, like,
are you gonna be able to go there again without thinking of the song?
It's a few cities over. I can let a few months pass by, but the fact of the matter is, there was, okay, while I was in there, and as this, you know, the twist of the song was happening, there was a girl walking in front of me in the bread aisle, and I just had to walk the other way in order to not feel gross. This is sub Twinkle Twinkle Little Bitch, okay?
It just missed that craze. It's a little early for that. This came out in 2020.
Ahead of the times.
You're right that this is where the horrorcore element of the album kicks in between Little Lamb and Main Street, and I honestly don't know what the fuck is happening anymore. It's really embarrassing to me. It feels like weak-ass ICP Eminem wannabe bars.
Now, I will say Main Street, I think, is better. Like, I like the soft woodwind, you know, I think the instrumental, like, sets things up better, you know what I mean?
Well, you know, I do gotta agree with you. I gave Lil Lamb a 0, I gave Main Street a 1, so I do agree, it is marginally better.
Right. Like, it feels more focused. There's a couple little lines in there, like, oh, they love me like Donald, so I, you know, fist her like a puppet like Mitch McConnell, like, oh, little sassy, you know, political bars in there, whatever. But then the earlier line, what was it? It was like, don't accept the rumor. I didn't stab her. I meant to execute her. I purely battered her, and that thing where the rhyme isn't at the end of the sentence, so I have to keep going awkwardly into the next line. You know what I mean? It's like...
Okay, as long as we're quoting, this is the one song where I, like, sat down and made sure to transcribe a few lines.
Oh, nice.
So first off, he says floozy a second time, so clearly it's just part of his vocabulary at this point.
He's trying to bring it back.
There was another tramp. She was fine candy till I ran her over. Now she's Flat Stanley. You leave Flat Stanley out of this.
What did Flat Stanley do to be roped into this?
I crammed her in a culvert. I don't know what that word was. You can say I'm dandy. Why would I do that? And then
find a rhyme.
Went to give her more acts than a book from Stan Lee. Boo!
Look, man.
Oh, man.
In addition to the horrorcore stuff coming in here, this is where I started getting real big incel vibes. I gotta say it. Like,
oh, absolutely. I'm glad you're acknowledging it. I wanted to. I was trying to tiptoe, but yeah. What kind of deep web forum logic is happening here
between floozy and there are other derogatory words I don't really feel like saying that come up too much, and it's like if I was getting a vibe that you were playing like an Eminem character, some fucking 3 a.m. shit of like, oh, you know, it's not me, it's just a story about something happening, but I can't divorce it, unfortunately, because you're not really putting enough of a partition up for me to think like, oh.
And there's not even good like storytelling to at least make it fun.
No.
Yeah, like there's one line that I like. Oh, every day I stay high like an Uber price. Like, oh, okay, that was a little bit of a jab there. Like, yeah, but again, it's like building around what, you know, this song that's like all about how you killed this woman for some reason. Like, yeah,
there were decent lines sprinkled throughout the whole thing, but there's no way I was stopping what I was doing to pause it and rewind it or whatever every time there was one, because they're so few and far between that, like, why would I stop the flow just to make... It's like, they weren't worth it is what I'm saying.
It's not worth it, yeah. And revenge. Like, again, it's like, I like the creeping piano, the little xylophone, the sparse little xylophone that's in there, but this hook, first of all, that hook doesn't go right, and and then it's like, what was up with that sample at the beginning and at the end with this white woman who sounds like she's racist, but at the end she says something that's like weirdly ambiguous. She's like, oh, I just think that black people need to educate and better themselves. And I'm like, what's happening? Like, why are you including this?
I thought those samples helped kind of add something, almost like the network sample on the first track. It's like, when there's samples used throughout, I think they help paint a picture, and I think they're used pretty well.
The Checkmate song is, I like the chill beat. I kind of like that he's kind of getting into a little bit of, social commentary on this one. I thought that was, kind of dope. He was going on the, what about this? What about that? What about the mills that the government, used to convert gays? Like, I kind of like him calling out shit like that. Like, oh, yeah, government money used for a political agenda like that. Like, that did happen, didn't it? Like,
there are plenty of songs where he'll say some real shit, but it's like, that's not enough. You can't just say real shit. You have to say it in a way that's grabbing. Yeah, like, the song itself needs to be intriguing for me to, like, really care about.
The framework of the song doesn't justify, like, bringing that in.
Yeah, no. But when I'm bored, though...
I'm in Checkmate, got my chest pains, yeah. Oh, yeah, when I'm bored, I like the multis of this one. I like the low-key piano beat joint. Oh, you weren't feeling this one at all, huh?
No. I actually, I had to quote this entire segment.
I had to go out of my way to write this one down.
Yeah, no, and this is a lot, too, so I'm sorry in advance, but this whole thing was just like... And I honestly think... It could have
he said the thing. He said the thing.
Oh, I know that. I know that show. This might have helped if the delivery was better, but I mean, I'm not going to be delivering with a flow. I'm just going to be reading it, but it's this part here. And okay, I didn't even reference the chip on my shoulder joke at the beginning.
Oh my lord.
That's got to go.
He really did the Malibu's Most Wanted 2002 joke.
What's this? Oh,
on my shoulder.
What's this on my shoulder?
That's what that
was? Yeah. Then he eats the chip.
See, where my mind went, I figured he was still in horrorcore mode and he was like eating his own shoulder or something. I would have preferred that. At least that's an image.
Dump some salt on it. Take some.
If this can be misconstrued, then it absolutely needs to go. Like, get that out of there. But anyway, it's the... With my clip, I'm about to bring a thunder shower, yet people told me to quit, sit, and just hold in my power. I told them to suck a dick and just sit on my tower? You'll be lucky, bitch, even if I ever think of sending you flowers. Get well soon? No, I don't fuck with doubters. I told myself to die once, but I'll tell it to you just louder. Ruthless empowered to have this fucking music devoured? It's food on my counter. I'll chew it till my face is blue and my mouth hurts. In my youth, I was always losing like Bowser.
Yeah,
the tracks I had just sounded like puke made of chowder. I guess in a way I should thank these stupid cowards. They paved a way for my greatness and my brutal encounters. No. No, there were way too many.
One good line was losing like Bowser. Like, okay, I get that one,
I think the...
But again, as you're listening to the verse, like, it's not worth the one good, pearl in there.
You went nerdcore for a millisecond.
Right.
We can't just get one video game reference in an hour.
Yeah, you gotta put that on the Mega Ran verse. You gotta build a whole thing around that.
You leave Chowder out of this too, okay? It's Flat Stanley, Chowder, come on.
Nobody's safe from this.
And, okay, this is when I reach my limit. Best wishes, Paul.
I'll be honest,
when he was trying to get on his gangster rap, I'm like, okay, get out of here, wrap this up. Like, my Tommy gun unload, like, whoa, unload on these niggas, Kevin, unload with the fake machine gun noises. I'm like,
yeah,
get out of here. We don't believe you. You need more people.
I wrote, what the fuck with like 1 million U's. Then, dude, I gotta bail. This is too much. The chorus, the threats, the gun sound effects. There's still 10 more tracks?
Anyway, Ode to Trauma.
These lyrics, so I'm like okay with the song up to a certain point. It was like, oh, it's it's better than the last song, it's all relative. And then I get to the point, I would never hit a bitch unless she left me on red. And I'm like,
come on.
Yeah.
Okay, what?
Yeah.
What are you doing here? What?
It was at that moment where I was like, okay, any doubt I could have possibly given you in the other tracks, like, that's out of here.
Fucking
Like,
Drake bars. Yeah, like Drake if he did horrorcore bars.
Yeah, this is pulled out of some deep web forum that I want nothing to do with.
And these flows that keep just missing the groove of the beat. It's just infuriating. It's like, in addition to this being uncomfortable, it's like, can you at least fit the rhythm?
And also, I gotta mention, there's one line on this song where he's essentially, I think he's trying to imply that, and there's a song later on called Asperger's. We'll get to it, but
Right.
There's one line where he just casually like mentions being autistic, and speaking from that, like the idea of like taking all of these behaviors that exaggerated horrorcore cartoon stuff or not, like taking these behaviors and attitudes and attributing them to autism is kind of gross. Not that he's saying it's like the thing, but he's at least saying it's a thing, and that I don't like that as a message. Like it's beyond just like incompetence into like, no, there's like a fundamental no happening here.
Like it is sort of like it's an incompetence in terms of like creating the song and how the message ends up coming out, right? Like that sort of deal.
The song Lone Wolf, I don't know if I'm crazy. I don't know if this is just a Stockholm Syndrome thing or something. This is the only one so far that, like, on a content level, I can kind of get behind.
Okay, yes, I really like the hook of that one. And then the fucking verses. Like, I just wrote it like, oh my God, these fantastic harmonies. Like, I love it. The guitar in the background, the little emo rap you going for. And then the verses come in, they're so janky. And I'm just like, stop, man. Yeah. Get out of your own way with these tracks.
Yeah. And now, like, as far as like what he's saying, though, like, I did like the idea that he's talking in some of those lines about like kind of staying in a loop of bad news online and how that can kind of compound on your depression and anxiety and feeling like the walls are closing in on you. Like, that's real. That like it goes from like a very unlegitimate thing or track or two earlier to like, OK, this is an idea on paper that I kind of vibe with. I did feel like the chorus was a little awkward personally, but for me, it's maybe the most tolerable song so far. I don't know.
I had to point out two things. First of all, Lone Wolf is the first song on side B. So Ode to Trauma and Best Wishes Paul were the last two on side A. So maybe side B is, starting off on a somewhat decent foot, even though I wasn't necessarily a big fan of Lone Wolf. I had to quote this part from Ode to Trauma because this was a point in the album where I seriously had to be like, to my partner, you need to hear how awkward this is. Because I usually let them, not have to hear stuff that's not very
Spare
good.
them.
But I was like, I need someone else to hear this right now. It's the, I guess I'm a pile of shit. So I get high and I cry as I'm wishing friends I had in high school weren't friends I had for 5 minutes. I think the Almighty laughed when he assigned me my limits. Da Vinci type mind I have, but sometimes I just light up bridges. Like the weird choppy flow of just like, how am I supposed to follow along with this? It's so janky.
Yeah, and oh my God, just that little intermission, the flip and decide B intermission. It was like
with the spooky Halloween tape sound effects,
ambient noise. Yeah, I was like, dude, get to the fucking point. And then
why does it have to be so long?
Kick in, like some drums kick in near the end, but it's like this wasn't worth this.
No.
I mean,
my God.
At least like the interlude tracks give you kind of a break from those flows.
It's palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it's going
for. Now, I do want to mention the song Asperger. When I saw this on track list, I kind of shit my pants a little. I was so nervous, but there's kind of nothing here. I just found it was a weird kind of clickbait
I was like, why
title.
is it even called that?
Because okay,
absolutely.
The one thing I'll say, there is one punchline about puzzle pieces, which makes me wonder: is this like? Which makes me kind of like, oh no,
just one line reference sort of thing.
Is this some Sia shit endorsing Autism Speaks or something? You know, just because of the puzzle piece thing, and also like. There's also weird stuff with the term Asperger's that like we don't have to open up the can of worms on.
Yeah, it's not good.
But what was it? Yeah, I was noting things. I was like, okay, first of all, the drone in this beat is just way too low key. Like you could fall asleep listening to this, and you know what I mean? Like it was just so low key. And then when the rap comes in, like, okay, so randomly later on, he gets into these bars about like having a threesome with these two chicks, but it's just so clunkily delivered that I'm like, I do not believe you. Like, I'm so, like, you gotta sound a little smoother than this.
Is he trying to pull one of those memes that's like me and the bad bitch I pulled by being autistic? Is he trying to do one of those?
Oh no.
The first half is really just kind of nothing, but the second half, it was really off-putting with all the like sex shit, and that's only this track. I mean, we get more of it later.
We do.
I honestly don't have anything to say about any of the songs before Sex Rats. Did either of you have anything to say about?
Let me see.
That's the other one that had like the guy Hubaza that's like doing a chorus that's kind of decent, and then just like the stuff being put on top of that. He's getting upset that this girl won't wear a bracelet for him.
Yeah, what was going on? Wear a bra or something? Did y'all catch that line? Like, was that on this one? There was something about a bra.
I think it was on Little Lamb where she was like using a bra to hang herself or something.
Yeah, I was like, okay. But Don't Know You Anymore. I this was the beat I remember liking the most. It has the most sort of mainstream trap emo sounding instrumentation. But then the hook, what was it like? When he said I loved you, I looked that up. Like, is that what he's saying? Like, what's being said there? It sounds like when he said I love you, I looked that up.
I'm not looking that up.
What is that supposed to mean? And then it's like these flows are killing me. The way they're just so they're anticipating the beat too much. It's like where he's saying the word too soon, and you can hear it. Where it's just like, oh my god, just relax, just let the word fall into the rhythm. Like Jesus Christ. And then left out, this hook, it sounds like they legit got a 2011 Sia or Rihanna to sing this hook, and I was like, what? Like, oh, he's getting his mini emo trap on, okay. Like, there was that first verse that came in that actually sounded like it was in the pocket, and then it was like, oh, I'm actually enjoying this. 2/3 of the song have gone by. And then the 8-bar rap verse that doesn't sound like it was recorded in the same studio comes in. It's like, oh, okay, here we go, there we are.
Again, like, the features are the only times that the vocals on this album sound like they're actually mixed and mastered into the song.
Yeah, it's like it was cut out of the studio or something.
I've made mashups where the vocal parts fit better.
The chorus got my hopes up really high, just to be let down by just how clunky and painful the verses were on that one.
Oh, gee, I'm so sorry, but I just looked at the next breakup skit, and I just had like a visceral reaction.
What in the murder fetish ASMR is this?
Both of you are going to have to let me know what happened in this, because Muse is back, and the misphonia was kicking real hard here.
I was wondering about that with this. I was wondering how you'd react to some of this.
I totally get you stomping that skip button.
I hit skip within
Fuck
2 seconds.
Fuck this track so hard.
Okay, so I kind of like held my headphones just so off to the side, but I still was like listening to what's happening, and it's just like this girl is kind of like whispering with like an ASMR tingle of like, I'm gonna stab you now.
It was just like, I don't want to hear this.
It's just like a weird role play thing that should not be on an album.
That's the thing. It's like, yeah, it's clearly like a sexual thing, but it involves like shedding blood, and it's just like, this is not okay. I don't want to hear this. Like, this is that. There was this one Insane Clown Posse affiliated female rapper that I remember hearing once, and like, she was the one ICP affiliated person that actually like got under my skin like for a second, where she had some song where it's just like, we're gonna be in love forever, and I'm gonna like get some like some needles to inject you with Clorox to make sure you don't leave or something like that. It was just like something that she said that just skeeved me just perfectly, where I was just like, ooh, you got me with that. And like, you hit the, I'm an insane female clown, but like, I can't listen to any of this again because that is horrifying.
But this going into sex rats, like at some point.
My God.
Okay, wait. Here's the thing. There's a point when you're this deep into it where, like, at some point it's so distasteful you just start dissociating.
Oh.
Yeah, I get that.
And that peaked with this song here because don't do a sex song. Just don't. I don't want to do a definitive thing like that too often, but I can say pretty confidently, don't do a sex song on this record.
You have to know what the fuck you have to be a master of your fucking craft to deliver, because you have to, it's a delicate mood, right? Like, you have to make me actually believe that you're getting some play and that this person, like, is actually comfortable. But when you come in with this hook where he sounds like, I don't know how to describe it, but it just sounds like the whippoorwind, like wailing as he goes, oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah, baby. And I'm just like, oh, stop. I don't want to hear this.
If I wasn't already getting hit upside the head with incel vibes for most of the album, this might have been a little less awkward, but just fucking imagine how jarring it is to be hit with, like, bitch and all this misogynistic language for most of the album, then all of a sudden, oh, I expect we're gonna smash now. Like, excuse me?
Yeah, like,
why would you think that? That's just like, I put down like 20 zeros for sex rats and just wrote no.
0 multiplied by 0.
That's my only note, is no. So yeah, I agree with Mark. Just don't do this. Not again.
And of course, that also then moves on to the other song, My Only Route, the only song that I can also kind of get behind on paper. Like, it's a more kind of introspective one about kind of using music as a solace when everything is falling apart around you. Again, that idea is real. And I'm not saying to, like, stop doing the music stuff, because there's clearly a passion here, but just, like, some things just need, like, fundamental changing along the way.
I did quote that was a bit awkward, again in the delivery maybe, or the lyrics. He goes, gotta stay positive, but it's hard as fuck to stay on top of it. God, is it my fault? Possibly. If it is, let me own it. Monopoly. Another hashtag there for you. Honestly, I'm persecuted and you go crazy when you're secluded. That was okay. You begin to see the sky turn red, and when your eyes open, the fantasy's ruined. What was that supposed to rhyme with? Secluded?
Here's the thing. I get doing a little bit of a hard rhyme or whatever, but like, you have to make it sound like it could actually rhyme, maybe like enunciate the words in a way where you're just like, oh yeah, I can hear somebody said it like that. And you can hear, but with these, it's like, it's so like, yes, if you put these two syllables together, they kind of have a similar syllable flow, and I'm going to do nothing in any way to try to like bend it to make it sound like that. I'm just going to rely on the fact that you kind of hear that, and it's just, it's that Wale flow thing where it's just like, huh? Like, you can't hear how you need to do a little bit more work with making that sound right, like.
And it's also hard to do the slant rhyme thing when you're like enunciating this hard.
Yeah, that's what's so weird. Yeah. And then there's Your Glory. Nice enough hooker, sounds like a little lockjawed, but still enjoyable enough. And then Breakthrough outro, which has actual raps on it, but only one verse. It's mostly that hook playing, though, but I thought it was oh, no. Actually, this wasn't right. It was like, oh, Track Murderer, ain't never heard of ya. I was like, oh, my God, this 1993 Ice Cube gangster rap bars. Track Murderer, ain't never heard of ya.
And that's it.
Well, what did you guys give this?
I don't know if Mark rated it. Did you?
I didn't do track by track because like normally if I'm like going through like a track by track thing, I would like use like rate your music and it's down on there. But it's definitely, the album is definitely not more than a 1.
I gave it exactly a 1.
I give it a generous 2. It just purely for the beat work and instrumentation, where it's just like, man, this
That's
exact
fair.
same album, but just a second pass of these verses would have at least been competent. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it would have been like, oh, okay, I got to give you bars for that. But just the fact that it's like, wow, there is a competent album sitting here that I can hear, but you didn't unlock it, you know?
Yeah. If I could suggest two things, it would be either one, if I don't know who's making the beats on this record, if Quan is making these beats himself, I'd say lean harder into that, because most of these, like the instrumentals in a vacuum, are competently balanced themselves. It's just what's combined with that kind of makes everything fall apart. The other thing I'd suggest is, if these collaborators, if you know them personally, like, get some pointers from them, because there is some professionalism when those features come in. Progress is possible here. I think you just got to know where to look in order to get there.
And from there, we go on to the main attraction. It's Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band with Born in the USA.
Now, let me just say this much. I never really had that much of an in with Bruce Springsteen, personally. I knew he was the
Was this
boss.
Dr. Goatman?
Wait, let me take a look, because it just might be. Hold on just a second.
If it is, we're going to have to shout him out.
Yes. Let's go to the request.
Goatman, you're doing the Lord's work on this one.
That's
my
right,
friend.
yes, Dr. Goatman.
Dr. Goatman!
I don't know how you have the budget in you.
I don't know!
Bless you.
Dr. Goatman.
Just what the doctor ordered.
Exactly.
Yeah, however, all four of the singles that the big singles from this, I remembered, like, it was like oh, hey, I know this one. Oh, and hey, I know that one. Oh, and hey, I know that one. And it was like a thing where I was just like, it was the thing where, like, I know Billy Joel more, so this is the other 80s B guy that I kind of like go like, if it's not him, it's this guy, and then if it's not him, it's like Billy Idol, because it's like they kind of have a bit of a rockage, thing. Like, his is clearly a more like working stiff, working Joe sort of feel, but like there's a bit of like rock 80s twinge in there as we get a little deeper into the albums. That is like, oh, okay, like especially Dancing in the Dark. That was the song that I was like, hey, this is the song that I always confuse with Dancing with Myself.
Oh, shit,
Wow.
okay.
I never thought about that, but wow, I can hear that now.
Yeah, but this one's more low key, and I remember being like, this is the one that, like, I would hear that one because that's the one that gets played more on the 80s radio and be like, isn't there another one that's kind of like, but I can't remember how it goes, But all of these songs, that were like the hit singles, I remember, and we'll talk about the varying degrees to which I felt that they did their thing. But yeah, as far as like knowing him, it's always been a sort of like, oh yeah, I know the hit singles. Whenever, like, it's the 4 hit singles off of this one and Baby We Were Born to Run. Those are the ones that I like know from him. Please tell me that's him. Is that someone else?
Yeah, yes. So it's interesting. So let me just say, it's always interesting because he, obviously he's someone with like 20 something albums. So like it's tricky. Like, there's definitely like this period from like Born to Run to Born to Born, where I can pinpoint someone to any of those records for various reasons. I'd say like Born to Run and Dark and Sunshine on the Edge of Town, those ones from 75 and 78 are like, if you want the Springsteen sound where it's like that full band kind of going all in on getting out of this town and like, but with kind of like this undercurrent of capitalist dread.
Yes.
Those are the ones you go to. But the interesting thing about Born in the USA is that this is the album where if you want like the easiest in because it's the most songs you probably recognize just from cultural osmosis, this is the one I point to because, in probably one of the biggest years for blockbuster albums ever, 1984, this was one of the biggest of that. And there were literally, I believe, 7 top 10 singles from this record, which was a record at the time. Although surprisingly, none of them hit number 1.
I can see that,
okay.
actually. Now,
From
I gotta tell
75.
y'all my history.
Please do.
Being
Please
from
do.
Jersey in the first place, it kind of is in your
Right.
blood
Oh.
that, you gotta, you're either Springsteen or you're Bon Jovi. You need to pick a side. I always leaned way, way, way more towards Springsteen. I honestly never really got into Bon Jovi too much. And Mark might give me some pushback on this one, but it wasn't until this week that I actually listened to this one the whole way through.
In a weird way, I get it. Because it's one of those where like I don't feel the need to like watch Star Wars movies all the way through because like I feel like I already know everything. So it's like a similar thing where it's like how much more info would I gain by listening to like the 5 songs that didn't get on the radio, you know? So I get the logic there.
It was last week or the last episode before that we talked briefly about Prince and we talked about the discography and just how there was always kind of a, in Lion King where there's like, you don't want to go over there. You don't want to go into that part, I always looked at Prince's discography of like, you never want to go into the 90s. You stop at the end of the 80s. You don't need to go any further than that. In my head,
1990 into the line.
Oh yeah, as soon as it becomes Prince and the Revolution changes into Prince and the New Power Generation, you don't need that. You can pretty much save yourself a lot of time there. Although I will say, Prince actually did a pretty good job of like predicting what the 90s sound would be. It just didn't really work for him personally, in my opinion. But back to Springsteen. I was always really big into the other ones up to this point. Greetings, Wild the Innocent, Born to Run especially, Darkness on the Edge of Town, The River. I can't say anything bad about them. But there was always something in my, I guess this preconceived notion that Born in the U.S.A. was like the overly poppy, you don't need to really listen to that one. You basically got everything you need from the hits.
The hit song, right? Like Born in the USA, it has that 80s bombast synth cheese to it as soon as it starts. Boom, ba-dum, boom, ba-dum, like...
Yeah, I always just kind of got the impression that, like, you know what? I think I know what that album is. It's probably not really for me stylistic-wise. I'll just skip it. And I didn't hate this album, honestly. I liked the rest of it. I gotta say though, in my opinion, none of the deep cuts hit me nearly as hard as any of the hits did.
Because there's one album that you didn't bring up between The River and Born in the USA that I feel like kind of informs it. That would be Nebraska. So if I can tangent.
Oh, that's right.
If I can tangent info dump for a sec.
Oh, go off.
Please. Oh, wow, I get to do the thing. I've waited 9 years for this. But no. So 1980, he's coming off of The River, which is this big double album with kind of spanning everything that's, in his oeuvre at that point, and he's not like the biggest rock star on the planet, but he's on that level. He's gotten a few top 40 hits. Hungry Heart hit the top 10, and he's doing really, really good for himself. And then I believe how it goes is that like he was doing some cross country travels just to like relieve his anxiety or something. And out of him came these folk songs, these really specific storytelling character portrait folk songs about like people in the middle of bumfuck nowhere that have no prospects left and end up just killing people. And he writes 10 of those and he demos them in his bedroom on this little 4-track Tascam recorder. And then on just like, vocal, guitar, maybe a background vocal. Then he brings that to the E Street Band, which is what he would normally do, to have them work on the arrangements, and they cannot get arrangements for these songs figured out in a way that would work. So he just looks back at those demos and goes, why don't I just put these out? And so he did. And like, it didn't do amazingly, but it still did okay. And then I think that one touch point you might hear from people over the last 20 years or so is that all of a sudden, in the 2000s, you get these indie folk guys coming up. Your Conor Oberst and people like that, and all these hip millennial musicians in the indie world are saying like, hey, that's the Springsteen record right there. If you really want to get that dark, bleak storytelling, like if you want to think of him in a light other than, just like Born in the USA, jeans and the handkerchief and the American flag kind of image. And then, of course, straight from that, he just made this like straight up blockbuster pop record as kind of like the other way around from that. Although the title track was actually written sort of around those sessions, and there is like a more kind of stripped down acoustic version that might totally change your outlook on the song entirely.
Oh, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah. But what I love about the pop sound of this record compared to his other stuff, and I'm not sure if this is only apparent, like if you have heard that other stuff, is that it almost feels like he's Trojan horsing certain themes into the pop world of 1984 by like, because you have the song Born in the USA where it does have, those big doofy synths and the gated snare on like every beat. Right. But then he's also talking about how America has totally let down and abandoned its veterans and, have left them with no prospects in life.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's such an interesting, like, topic, right? Like, there's that, discussion of whoever ended up using it. Was it Reagan who used it on his campaign trail or something like that? And it's just like, can we stop letting the stupid people decide how a certain art will be remembered, right? Like, because it's like they almost kind of ruined that for me. Because I remember at first having that feeling of like, oh, is it just like a sort of like patriotic sort of thing? And then someone being like, no, actually, it's the opposite of that. If you just listen to the song, if you just
that's all you have to do.
Listen to the song, like,
I think it's very funny that this is probably his like biggest single. And it's like it might be like near his most scathing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And I just want to point out initially, like, the original way I had known the song is that, I had known that song, of course, hearing it at the beginning of, I Love the 80s, when they were doing that, they would have those intros, that song would certainly play. As well as there was a movie that Cheech Marin had done in the 80s called Born in East LA.
Oh my God, yeah.
Anyone remember that one?
I remember
that song anyway.
Where he gets like he gets deported because he's in California and of course he's Spanish, so of course they assume he's like Mexican, but he was born in America and so he genuinely has to like try to get back over the border. And there's one part where they ask him like, oh yeah, you're an American, who's the president? And he goes like, it was the guy from those movies, Jackie Gleason.
And it wasn't just Reagan. So let me just read this part here. Conservative columnist George Will, after attending a show, published a piece on September 1984 titled "A Yankee Doodle Springsteen," in which he praised Springsteen as an exemplar of classic American values. He wrote, this is the catch, I have not got a clue about Springsteen's politics, if any, but flags get waved at his concerts while he sings songs about hard times. He's no whiner. And the recitation of closed factories and other problems always seem punctuated by a grand, cheerful affirmation, Born in the U.S.A. You could not get it more wrong.
This is like so the 7-year-old's version of like listening to the song where you can excuse a 7-year-old not understanding it because they're a child and they're stupid and they don't understand God. You're a fucking grown-ass adult who can absolutely, like, did you just hear, oh yeah, there's lyrics about going to Vietnam and yeah, finally a song that cheers on us going to Vietnam. That's right. I'm not going to listen twice to the lyrics. Like, you fucking morons.
I don't know anything about Bruce Springsteen's political alignment. I hear he has a podcast these days. I don't care to look up who he's hosting it with.
Oh, yeah.
But he did allow a song to be used in the John Kerry campaign. In 2004.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it No Surrender?
Nice, I guess.
Yes.
I knew it! I fucking knew it! That Meatloaf ass song.
That fucking cornball ass.
The narrators in these songs are always like on the losing end of the American system. If you really break them down, like they're always getting fired, getting broken up with, going to jail, having these deadbeat manual labor jobs. And if this is what those politicians see as an aspirational thing, they're telling on themselves.
Well, because the idea is that, that's the American, that they're putting on that aesthetic. No, don't you want that American dream? Ben Shapiro, he gets that, the pickup truck to look just like you, middle American, you know? Isn't that what you should want, to just work as a drone for a company so that they can, you know, use you as much as possible? And then as soon as they're done with you, throw you away, you know, like.
Yeah, and that's why I think is kind of genius about this record is that, you know, when you just look at the aesthetics, you know, it's like red, white, and blue and the blue jeans butt and like, you know, all that kind of stuff. But then you actually peel it back. And again, it's this Trojan horse thing of like, actually, here's why America might not be the perfect place to be born in.
Fascinating. It's fascinating because it's like, you know, these people tell on themselves why they fall for it, right? Just because it makes them feel nice. It makes them feel like, yes, we are right. Our country is the main character of the world, you know, like.
Yeah. Now, I will say not every song goes this deep. There are some deeply dumb songs here, but I weirdly think, you know, if we go into like Cover Me, Darlington County, that kind of stuff, like I think it does kind of help in like kind of giving that sense of security for people who might just be in it for the rah kind of Reagan shit. And only to kind of slide that other stuff in on some of the other songs.
I think Randy Newman over here.
I think it's a decently sequenced record in that regard. But if you guys want to move on to like Cover Me, Darlington County, the rest of the songs here.
I really like how like the song for the most part has the synthetic drums, but then when it kind of comes in at the tail end, you can hear like the real drums kind of come in with a real, like it really adds effect. Like I feel like I've heard this song a lot of times, and I feel like every time I start it, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, it's this song. It kind of goes on like this for a while, but then, you know, for this album listen, when like it feels like every time I get to the end, it feels worth it for when you hear the real drum fill kind of like come in and like play with the time a little bit. So I just want to give props to that little bit there.
We can talk about the commentary all day, but at the end of the day, when he just goes, you know, like that rules. That just fucking rules.
There's like this synth that kind of goes throughout it that sounds like way more haunting and like down, like sour compared to the rest of the song. That really does kind of hurt the optimism of the song. Like it's just kind of there to remind you like, hey, this isn't good.
And then of course you move on to Cover Me, which he literally he originally wrote it for Donna Summer.
It doesn't really sound like a bit like like bare bones 80s love rock track, you know? Like.
Yeah. And I feel like we're allowed a couple of more kind of dumb pop songs here. And so like he originally wrote for Donna Summer and then he demoed it and he was like, wait, shit, I want this. And I do, although that said, I do kind of like, you know, the song's just about like the world's getting tougher. And then he's just kind of taking like the super specific kind of strife of the first song and then making it a little more universal, digestible for everyone there. And it's also just a great pop song too.
And I do like it in terms of like, yeah, after all that heaviness, turning to this love song in which the song's theme is like, cover me, you know, make me like shield me from this world, you know?
I think it was kind of lacking in the lyrics and the instrumentation. It was just kind of mid in my opinion, except for the squealing guitar solos that do elevate it to like okay, like those almost justify it in my opinion. Like otherwise I think it's kind of, it's okay. But the guitar solos are like, oh shit, yeah, that's why we're here.
If you know two people in the E Street Band, it would be Clarence Clements, who we're going to get to.
Big man.
Big man. And then Steven Van Zandt, who's doing most of the lead work.
You got the big man and you got little Stevie.
Yeah. It all evens out.
I gotta give this a shout out because RC mentioned it before, Randy Newman. There's a song that Randy Newman does. He's talking about like, if I was the big star out there, how I'd be doing things different. And he's just like halfway through, he's just like, I called up Bruce Springsteen and he told me, hey, Randy, how about you be the boss for a while? Hey, big man, blow it. And you hear this like half-ass Clarence Clements saxophone.
Jesus Christ.
It's so fucking funny.
What's the name of that song? Please, I need to look that up so bad.
So for this next track, I was listening to like his voice and I was like having this moment where I was like, wait, he's supposed to be from New Jersey, right? Why does he sound like a Southerner in this song? What's going on here?
I think he's channeling some of that.
he's at his fucking most John Cougar Mellencamp ass.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
As a kid, I always got them confused, and it's like, Mellencamp is like my mom's favorite artist, and I still don't understand that, but it's fine. As a kid, I always said like I got them confused, and she just couldn't understand that. It's like listen to Darlington County. You could confuse this for a fucking Cougar Mellencamp song if you didn't know any better.
And I like the nice sax solo. The sax
boy.
solos all over
it.
this album are fucking on point.
The first appearance of the big man on this thing.
I honestly wasn't really vibing with this song really until Clarence fucking shows up.
Solo, yeah.
And then it's like, yeah, there we go.
Here we go.
I do gotta say though, the little girl, you're so young and pretty. Maybe stop with that.
We're gonna get to that a little later.
I know the line you're talking about with that. We're gonna get there.
But okay, but the end of this song though, where the final line where it says, "Driving out of Darlington County, Shawn Wayne handcuffed to the bumper of a state trooper's Ford." I was like,
Jesus.
Whoa, what a dark line for how relatively peppy the instrumentation is.
I quoted this too, and I kind of love that. It's like I was saying, like he's doing these like dumb kind of traveling around kind of, you know, populist kind of songs with like a fun storytelling and stuff, and then just boom, you're arrested by a state trooper.
It's that Randy Newman thing where it's just like, wait, what was that one line? What was that one thing he just said? What was that one thing about his dog? 6 people? Who are those people that his dog is sicking now? What's going on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and even like, you know, the line before it is like, "Driving out of Darlington County, I've seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." Like he's quoting, I think it's on Genius, it was like the Battle of the Republic hymn or something. And then just like that juxtaposed with, "And my buddy just got arrested by a state trooper."
Then there's Working on the Highway. It's the 80s calling back to that 50s with that, you know how those 50s songs had that echoey sound, especially that, who's that one dude who played the guitar really like, it was like really thin and really like, you know, it was like the late 50s, there was a specific echoey sort of, hey baby, you know what I mean?
Like a Richie Valens or Buddy Holly kind of thing? Or
And I kind of like how on this hook where he's like, "Working on the highway, laying on the blacktop, getting on the highway all day, I don't stop, getting on the highway." Like he doesn't say the first syllable of working, he just kind of like, "Getting on the highway." For some reason, I don't know why I like that. It's like, "Get on the highway, lasting through the bedrock." I don't know why that just hit for me.
This album is, you know what it is? This album is it's his most maybe his most 80s album. Maybe Tunnel of Love is a little more 80s, but but this record, but you know, it's generally been pretty composed for a lot of it. This is like the coked out 80s song.
No, for sure.
It's got this like almost like manic baseball stadium energy with those organs.
It sounds like he's on top of the jackhammer working on the highway.
I really wasn't vibing with the throwback feel of it, honestly, which is kind of, I don't know. It might just be not what I'm really expecting from Bruce, so it didn't really hit me the right way.
It's doofy. It's unquestionably doofy.
You know, when it again, I'm the one, you know, who's comparing this all to Billy Joel, right? Like that's my sort of like, all right, how well are you doing the 80s emulating the 50s thing? So yeah, like relative to that, I was kind of like, I'm left a little wanting, but the hook does hit for me.
Well, hold on, I can't let you off the hook. Just how does this compare to Drive-In Saturday?
God damn it!
I knew it. I had to
bring it back to that.
I like this one more. I think this one, this one has me snapping my fingers. You know what I mean? Getting on the highway, getting on the highway. He's so into it, he can't even say all the words. Like,
just when you said the like throwback 50s, I was like, okay, you had such an issue when Bowie did it.
But it's just like, it just depends on how you do it, man. I don't know what to say. Because, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, I felt like something fried in the processors for that one. Because, I'm totally a sucker for the 80s calling back to the 50s thing. But it's like, you had to do it right. And on this album, I think he does it, like, relatively well. But, I do feel like there are certain tracks on here where I feel like he hits it. There's there's a Born to Run 2 on this album, I feel like, which has that
There
feel
is,
of like,
yeah.
oh, this is almost like that, but I feel like I could just listen to that original song. And that's what I get with some of these tracks, where I get like, no, it's not that this is bad, this is competently done, but I do kind of get the feeling of, but I can listen to Innocent Man, though, like, you know? And Downbound Train is where I kind of start to get that feeling a little bit, where I'm like, you know, it's cool enough. I like the light 80s synths, you know, the very nighttime synths that have that feel. But his voice just misses matching the aesthetic of this consistently enough to really feel like it's working. Like, it just feels like his voice just tips right over where it's a little too strong for what's happening on the instrumentation. Like he's leaning just a little into the mic, like he's doing a take where it's a little late at night and he kind of just wants to get this one done, so he's just leaning a little bit into it a little bit too much, you know what I mean?
RC, are we really going to talk about bad vocal takes after what we just experienced earlier in this episode?
But, you know...
Respectfully.
True.
I also wanted to bring up this genius annotation for Working on the Highway, because I almost forgot. This is the description of the song. I'm not editorializing this at all. I'm just going to read it as is, and then we can discuss it afterwards. In this deceptively upbeat rockabilly number, the boss plays a guy who starts out laying blacktop on a highway as a highway worker and winds up doing the same job on a prison gang. His situation goes from bad to worse all because he skips town with a, parentheses, presumably underage girl and runs afoul of her father and brothers. Bruce keeps it lighthearted, but it's very much in keeping with this album's dark view of the American dream. I think this person was reading into the whole little girl thing a bit too much. I didn't really get the vibe
Because
that
I
Bruce
think
was skipping town with an underage girl specifically.
I think a thing to keep in context is that also just like little girl is just like a kind of unfortunate turn of phrase, but still just like a turn of phrase of the time that was used like through the 80s. From the 50s
sort of like a
the 80s,
QC,
you know?
sort of talking to a girl that you're trying to like, schmooze, yeah.
And also, I do want to say, like, even if we were going to go with, you know, our lovely interpreter's interpretation of things, at the same time, I would kind of get like a through line from Nebraska in a way where, like, you know, most of those protagonists are freaking lawbreakers and murderers and stuff. And like, I'm not opposed to the idea of the protagonist of one of these songs being not a great guy.
Right.
I honestly, I like that a lot. A lot of the songwriters I like the most do depict just real scummy, unlikable people.
But, you know, they usually do a good job of making it clear, like, that, how you're supposed to think of the person, right? That's usually kind of the point where you're like, oh, I get where they're going here. Like, yeah.
Now, if we do want to talk about a song where you really are unquestionably with the protagonist, we got to talk about Downbound Train. Little details like, now I work down at the car wash where all it ever does is rain. Like that's just like a tiny thing, but just like, oof, man. It's just like a little extra kick while you're down.
There's a lot of mentioning of being down and trains on this album.
He's going down.
Yeah, going down and trains.
He sure is.
I think it was a more sexual album than it actually is.
Also, I do want to say, you were talking about the synth tones on Downbound Train. You definitely get more of that on the following album, Tunnel of Love. And then also on this really underrated album he put out in the mid-90s called The Ghost of Tom Joad. That record is sort of a follow-up to Nebraska, and just like all the songs are about like the struggles of migrants on the Texas-Mexico border, basically.
Going on to I'm on Fire. My first note was like, this is supposed to be sleazy, right? Like, it has that 80s plastic cowboy feel to it. I don't know how to describe it other than that. But
I love the fucking vibe of this song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It sounds like there's a dude with a hunky dude with a little cowboy hat doing a Magic Mike routine, you know?
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like, it has that feel to it, like, hey, little girl, is her daddy home? You know, it's like at the male strip club, you know what I mean? Dancing for the ladies, you know?
He's got the one foot up on a bale of hay.
Right.
I guess, but man, I did quote a few of the lines on this one too, just picturing someone stripping while they're thinking, sometimes it's like someone took a knife, baby, edgy and dull, and cut a 6-inch valley through the middle of the skull. At night I wake up with my sheets soaking wet and a freight train running through the middle of my head. Only you can cool my desire.
See, that's the thing, like, it starts off feeling like it's creepy and sleazy, and then those lyrics happen, and it's like, whoa, this is like, it feels darker than that. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's an interesting flip that happens there. It doesn't just revel in the, sexy lyrics. It's just kind of like well, this actually sounds like this guy is not okay. Like, and more than just the sort of, oh, Marvin Gaye, oh, I'm burning desire. It sounds like there's actually a problem here, So yeah, it's interesting.
It's almost like cover me in a way where it's like almost like a coping mechanism. It's like something about that kind of anxious, depressed, neurotic Elvis energy is just so compelling to me, more so than actual Elvis. One other thing I want to mention about this song, there are a bunch of hits from this record, but none of them have like extensive cover sections in Wikipedia. I'm going to give you a short list of the people that have covered this song. It's been covered by, among others, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, Tori Amos, Big Country, Sarah Bareilles, John Mayer, Tegan and Sara, Barry Gibb, Lorde, Soccer Mommy, Gang of Youths, Chromatic, Tanya Tucker, and probably any given open mic near you right now.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
This is the kind of song that Jack Antonoff built his entire aesthetic around.
Oh
and
my
he'd be the first to tell you.
Yeah. I got to give a personal shout out to Lauren O'Connell, whose cover of the song I'm familiar with. They did a really great cover on it on one of their, I think it was the first covers album, if anyone's heard that one. But yeah, that is a stellar lineup. Genre spanning lineup, even.
Yeah,
with fucking Tegan and Sara in there.
Yeah, it's so interesting for something that has a specific country sort of feeling bent to it, but because of that, like, it transcends the genres in that way through just how much it like hits on that emotional level, you know.
And I think what some were saying is that like this and Dancing in the Dark are like the two like least band-y songs on the record. Like like this song is basically just like him on guitar and synths and then a bass and a drum, and that's it. And then later on Tunnel of Love, that's when he actually like ditched the E Street Band entirely, and it was just like him and a producer.
That fucking howling at the end of I'm on Fire is like my favorite part of the whole album.
Yeah.
Just woo-hoo. Oh my god, just echoing. It's so great.
And then, okay, No Surrender. This was the, hey, I feel like I've heard this before. Is this Born to Run too?
This is Bad Outta Hell by Meatloaf. I'm not even kidding. If you listen to the opening...
And it just kept throwing me off. You know when people do these rhymes where it's like, there's two syllables and the first syllable rhymes, but they didn't really meet the rhyme with the second syllable, and it's one of those things where like you could have done a shadow vowel with it, but they didn't. So he's like brothers in the stormy night with a vow to defend, no retreat, baby, no surrender. And it's like, ooh.
Yeah,
I never even
like,
thought about that.
Like, why didn't you say like? It's like my brain feels like you need to say defend. Like you need to lean in because like there has to be an there. You said surrender. Like what?
Well, it's because there's that slight pause at the end. It's like no surrender. Like the end hangs a little long. That the just kind of fades out.
It just
I know
doesn't
what you mean
quite
though.
right for me.
I pulled an RC on this one. I listened to the album once at work in full, and then I listened again when I got home, and I was able to follow along. Now, here's an aspect of the album, or this song specifically, that I did not pick up on when I was at work. I did not pick up on the fact that this song is about, like, a childhood guy friend. I thought this is a heteronormative guy-girl couple song. So when I go to Genius...
I know where you're going with this.
And I see that this is one of two songs on the album that potentially have a queer coding to them. I wasn't... I was a little surprised. Be like, yeah, I did not notice that he was singing about a dude friend here.
What's definitely true about these songs, Bobby G in particular, is that they're about Steven Van Zandt.
Right.
And because they kind of grew up in the music world together. He was an early member of the E Street Band, obviously, and then around this time, Steven was actually leaving the band for a bit. He would, the band would reunite in the late 90s, but at this point, like, there were kind of some power struggles in the band. He felt like he wasn't having enough of a say by this point, and so Born in the USA is almost like a transitionary album from Steven Van Zandt to Nils Lofgren, and then later on it would just be both of them, and that's why there's 17 people in the band now.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, but with these songs, like, that subtext has been brought up, and I think that he said that the name Bobby Jean is intentionally kind of gender ambiguous, so you can kind of fill it in however you like. He's never explicitly said that there's like a queer messaging to it, but he just kind of wanted it to be something that could go either way.
I do have to say, I fucking love this song. This is that, yes. This is what I wrote down. I was like, yes, give me that Billy Joel energy all day. That sweet throwback. It sounds like it's really about someone he really misses. Like, it hits in the musicality as well as like in little key lyrics that makes it sound like, oh, that sounds like that's about a specific person. That sort of feel,
This was the one that to me sounded the most like Born to Run era Springsteen. Like, it had that full band, heartfelt instrumentation, especially with like the twinkling pianos. Very much reminded me of that. It was the line, we like the same music, we like the same clothes.
Yes,
I was like,
that line, I was like, oh, Prince? We're going for Prince song writing right now?
if I was your girlfriend, let me pick out your clothes.
Right.
Like, I wasn't putting any blame on him or shame on him, obviously. I mean, coming from me especially,
just
but
noting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you pick up on those things.
The handshake meme between him and Prince in 1984, you know what I'm saying?
And of course, also I have written down, yes, blow big man, because he fucking comes through again on Bobby Jean and fucking kills it. I'm going down to me as the weakest cut on the album.
Yes, I wrote down.
It was one of the hits, though.
I can't believe that. How fucking repetitive and irritating this and going down, going down. I was so annoyed by it.
I felt like the verses definitely gets you into the unsatisfiedness of the relationship. So, like, I could still get what the point was, especially how that first verse pulls you in to the, like, oh, you're not happy and I'm not happy. And then when it gets into the second verse, like, yeah, but every time we go somewhere at the end of the night, we're always arguing. So it's like, I got that. But yeah, it felt a little too monotonous to really, like, have me feel the emotion, you know what I mean? It just kind of got me, the feeling of like, no, you did a good job at making me not feel like I want to be here in this moment right now,
And the fucking scatting?
Yeah.
I was just like, this ain't helping, dude. I don't really need this one.
I kind of appreciate that it's almost like kind of a similar subject to Downbound Train, but just in more of a kind of a silly, goofy mood about it. So I can appreciate it on that level, but it is definitely one of the more kind of just strumming along kind of cuts on here. I can give you that.
WrestleMania just passed this past weekend, and what they typically do before a main event is they normally have like a cool down match. I'm Going Down is kind of the cool down to me, I feel like, because they just kind of know it's going to be all killer, no filler from here on out, and it's just going to like, I could not believe, because I'm like not super familiar with this album, I was very shocked that these three songs were the last three. I was like, you saved these three for the fucking very end?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Starting with Glory Days.
Yes.
Which again, is such a fucking strong hit. And I gotta give a little bit of personal history with this one. I don't know if y'all did this in your respective middle schools or whatever, but I told the story about my elementary school graduation and that we ended up singing Wind Beneath My Wings as part of it. For a cousin of mine, they all as a class sang Glory Days?
That does not make sense for
That's
kids
not a song
to sing.
for a school to sing.
No.
This is the
As
song for you to look
children-
back on the tape in 30 years and be like, those were my glory days.
Yeah, like, I'm looking back on my Glory Days as, like, a young teenager. Like,
Jeez,
what the
hopefully
fuck?
you didn't peak.
Peaks in fourth grade.
Yeah, I don't understand. It's very odd to me. It's just like, we're in school. Well, they split up.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah. And this is another one of those songs where like it's been played on the radio, like, oh, this song's been played to death. I remember that beginning. Bah, bah, those really bright sounding synths, right? But man, it's like by the time you get to the end and you hear like how much heart is in the verses and how it really does and it really does give you that sort of like flip of like, it isn't just allowing you to just enjoy the moment. It is kind of like poking himself and being like, these wonderful glory days that no one gives a shit about but you, old man. It's like, there's a little bit of that bittersweet like poking there, that's just like, no one cares about this but you, but you know what matters to you. It's like that little bit of like emotional complexity that it gets in there that's really interesting,
And it's also got to be acknowledged that, like, okay, I've seen the point brought up by a couple friends in recent times that, like, the 80s were this one time when these, like, you can have these doofy middle-aged dudes as pop stars, right, and no one questioned it. So, like, these are the other people having, like, these blockbuster years in 1984, your Princes and Madonnas and stuff. They were, like, my age now at most, probably. But, Bruce making this, he was, like, 35. He's able to just shove a song with lyrics like this that are just this midlife crisis-y but smart about it. Right. And do it in a way that's not punchable. There's a missing verse of this song that appears on some live versions, but he cut it last minute because it didn't really fit the whole high school theme. And maybe this could shed some light. So it went, my old man worked 20 years on the line and they let him go. Now everywhere he goes out looking for work, they just tell him that he's too old. I was 9 years old and he was working at the Metuchen Ford plant assembly line. Now he just sits at a stool down at the Legion Hall and I can tell what's on his mind. Glory days. Yeah, going back. Glory days. He never had glory days. Glory days.
Jesus, Bruce.
Man.
Yeah. Don't hurt him. This type of song can be enjoyed by the conservative sports dad who's just like, just thinking about his glory days, whatever. But it can also be enjoyed universally by, like, just in general, people really having that genuine moment of like, oh, wow, I'm an old fart now, but those are fun for me. Like, it really gives you that, like, it doesn't just limit itself with how well it executes its premise to just the type of people that you would stereotype as listening to this type of joint, in the sports bar talking about how, if only I could, get my right shoulder back. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and I mean that's how you get like, anytime Bruce like does something with Obama or like makes some statement about or like puts out a song about police brutality or something, like, and people get like shocked. You see these Facebook dads. I miss when Bruce Springsteen wasn't a lib and political and like when he was just about the good old American stuff. And I was like, this is like when people comment on Rage Against the Machine stuff, but like for
Rage for the
like
Machine.
Yeah. Oh, and also, I mean, like, he's worked with Tom Morello a ton, by the way.
Have they never heard 41 Shots?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that song up. Yeah.
That's all I need. Like, how could you act like he was never political when that's sitting right there? Like,
the thing is, like, because you didn't notice. That's the thing. You didn't notice, and you were happy when you didn't have to notice, and now you have to notice. And instead of like having the moment of, oh wow, maybe things are deeper, it's just like, no, why can't I go back to not having to notice again?
Yeah, and I think like honestly, like even on this album specifically, like Goat Man, if you're listening, I think that Darkness on the Edge of Town or Nebraska are the albums where you're gonna put where verses like that are gonna be a lot more frequent and in your face and hard to ignore. Just like the existential capitalist dread of having to be ground through the working class system. This record, he's kind of Trojan horsing it. There's times when he's more just like upfront about it that are harder to ignore, and a lot of those songs weren't hits.
Yeah. I just think it's kind of funny that he's called the boss, and yet his songs are all about dismantling the workplace.
Oh,
you know?
honestly, he only called himself that in order to like make it clear that like you guys are the backing band. I'm making the decisions here, and at some point, Steven Van Zandt just kind of got tired of that, and then eventually was like, yeah, okay, that was a stupid decision for me to leave. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna come back and play stadiums. Dancing in the Dark. Let's just move on to those last two.
Yes, Dancing in the Dark. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, hell yeah. The fuck, that low key synth humming along. Boom, 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 boom. Fucking smash. It's such a low key, just fucking. It's not even low key. It's just the way it just hums along. That little synth. I love it so much. That little synth that could. And then the lyrics, you can't start a fire. Working out your little world falling apart. This gun's for hire. Even if we're just dancing in the dark. The way it just flows so naturally into that thing. And I just want to say this much. Like, there was an earlier track, I can't remember what it was. There's one point where his voice goes too far. Where it's like, his voice is demanded to go too high on one of these tracks, and I can't remember which one it was, but I remember it just being like, ooh, it just so cracks so hard that it's like, I don't know if we can do a whole album of this, but it doesn't do that for too much on the album. It's just like that one track, and I can't freaking remember which track it was, but I remember it's some song in here where I remember just being like, oh no, is he gonna be able to do this the whole album? But I think it was just so high in his register that it just kind of like, it just cracked right at the edge there, but not on this track. This track is fucking money.
I do want to quote another thing from Genius here. Guys, I promise I actually knew things about him before looking through Genius. I listened to his autobiography. It was 16 hours long. Highly recommended. I kind of wanted to narrate my life. That's a whole other situation. But anyway, producer John Landau thought the album lacked a guaranteed hit, which, for this record, Jesus, and pushed Springsteen to draft one more song. The two got into a brief altercation, after which Bruce wrote Dancing in the Dark about his, quote, difficulty writing a hit single and his frustration trying to write songs that will please people.
Wow! Holy shit!
And of course, now you get like he's this like mid-30s pop, guy making his big pop move, and he's like, "Want to change my clothes, my hair, my face?"
Yeah.
This is the best example of being able to cram some like real shit, but in a very accessible way. Like, it's relatable, but it's also like. Things are obviously rough, but they're not too rough that it's like turning people off. You know what I'm saying? Like, But musically also, it's just such a fucking bop, and just how fucking loud the drum, like the snare for it is.
That gated ass snare running through this record.
Oh my god! And also, there's a lot of lines where Springsteen is great singing along shit, but like. There's a lot of quintessential sing-along lyrics where you shout along with it, like strap your hands crossed my engines is a good yell line, but fucking they say you gotta stay hungry, hey baby, I'm just about starving tonight. It's like, how can you not? You gotta.
Yes. Can I just comment real quick on the album cover? Is that supposed to be a hat in his back pocket?
Yeah, it's like I think it's like the bill is tucked into the pant pocket.
Yeah, I was always like, where is that? How are they doing that?
As a kid, I always thought it was a whoopee cushion.
Yeah, I thought it was either like a whoopee cushion or just a really weird thick rag.
It's like someone played a prank where like they put crazy glue on the whoopee cushion and now it's stuck to him.
Yeah, like, you don't know any better.
It's so weird, these 80s like albums I feel like we've been coming across where it's just like they're very simple and iconic, and then there's just like this one little thing that you notice, like, what is that? What is going on there? Like with the Aladdin saying tear, like what was that?
Oh yeah. I guess if you just sit on the hat enough, like did you just forget you had a hat in your back pocket? You're sitting
like
on the hat.
He was posing and like they're taking a picture, like, does he know that's there? All right, he's the boss.
Well.
Yeah.
Now, my hometown.
The closer,
fantastic way to end the album, I think.
Another hit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't think you could have picked a better song to end it either. It's just so fucking chill and low key.
But the way it encapsulates the love for and the disgust with where you're from.
Yeah.
Like, and then like seeing it change, and it's like, you know what I'm saying, and having that wistfulness, like, it just captures so much emotion in these like 4 minutes of the song that it's just like, God damn it, okay, I get it. Like after this song, I was like, I get why people love this motherfucker. Like, you know, like why he represents that exact hometown hero shit. Like, okay, you got it. You know.
with the vibe of it, it's almost like a unintentionally kind of mundane ending because he's running through all this like economic disparity of the factory laying off people and like, you know, a lot of fights between the black and whites. And then he's just and he just ends it by, you know, sitting his son up on the car and just saying, "This is your hometown." And he doesn't repeat it 4 times. He just says it the once and then just lets it ride out.
Yeah,
like,
because like after all of the emotion that you've been given, and now it's like, here's this passing on to this next generation. It's just, oh man,
it's not overbearing about it. It's just, yup.
That's what it is. It's what it is.
And he does the same thing in Born in the U.S.A. that I love too, where the structure of the verses, like the lines in the first verse. It has like the 4 bars, and then in the second verse, it's just like, you know, they're still there, he's all gone. Then you just hear the like there's
because
not
he's
a fourth
gone.
line.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Man.
Yeah.
It just lets the music. It just lets you sit there with it. It's like, God damn, dude.
Of course,
So fucking good, Bruce.
We'd be remiss to not mention the most important part of this song, which is that the 45 of it, the B-side, is his cover of Santa Claus Is Coming to Town.
Oh my God, that's right. Hey, Clarence, you've been good this year. Santa's gonna give you a new saxophone.
Jesus Christ.
And I have that 45 for that exact reason.
I love that fucking song. Hey! Hey! Oh, it's Christmas time. Like, of course it's Christmas time. He's so surprised.
It's like, oh shit, what month is it? We've been touring a lot.
Yo, boy, what day is today? I'm not too late.
Oh my God. I do want to comment really quick at the tail end of Dancing in the Dark. Just a little kudos shout out to the sax that sneaks in like ever so slinkily at the tail end. Like it just like it feels like it just comes up. Y'all mind if I do a little bit more?
I do just love that Bruce just yells, "Hey, baby," to no one in particular, and then the sax just sneaks in.
He's obviously calling Clarence over.
He has to be. He's not shouting to Courtney Cox. She's not in the studio. It's just the music video.
We don't
She's
know
not
that.
there dancing. I don't. You're right. I didn't listen to the autobiography, but were you gonna say something else about Santa Claus Is Coming to Town? I hope so, because I love that fucking song.
I was gonna say, funny enough. So, RC, you are familiar with this version of Santa Claus Is Coming to Town?
No, I am not.
Oh,
How have you not
okay.
heard that? Oh my God.
Missing a piece of Christmas ephemera.
Damn it! I was gonna say that, like, if you want a taste of what, because that live version was recorded in '75. So if you want what like Born to Run era Bruce sounds like, that's a good taste of it.
During Christmas time, specifically.
Yes, obviously with
There
a
are
little
not
extra
many
jingle bell.
Christmas songs I actually enjoy and looking forward to hearing on the radio. That's absolutely one of them. Step Into Christmas, Elton John. That's a great one. Father Christmas by the Knack. That's a great one.
Good April conversation
Kinks?
right now.
Who did that one? The Kinks?
What's that one song
Wait.
that Todd introduced? Bah humbug, that's alright, but this is my favorite holiday. The Waitresses.
Iconic.
That's like the modern Christmas song right there. I mean, modern.
And then the Spice Girls did a cover of it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. But I mean,
I can hear it. I can hear it.
I mean, modern in like the Scrooged way, where it's like, oh, Scrooged is like not really modern anymore, but it's like the most relatively, like, it's like the generation removed relative modern retelling of the Dickens story. You know what I'm talking about? The Bill Murray Scrooge, where it's like there isn't a more modern version of that retelling that has been made that has gotten as big as that one. But because it's in the 80s, it's kind of like not really that modern now, because like, you know, TV doesn't really have that much control over, you know, the masses. But it's still an interesting sort of time capsule, you know what I mean?
Father Christmas is the Kinks, by the way. I had to double check that.
Yes.
But yeah, Springsteen and Santa Claus Is Coming to Town. RC, you need to do yourself a favor. You need to hear that. You need to listen to
like
the Randy
it.
Newman song.
Please.
I've got some homework.
Well, is there video of his Santa Claus Is Coming to Town performance?
I don't.
Is that a music
I
video?
think it was just audio recorded. I could look that up.
God damn it! I have
What I will
it
say-
pictured in my head.
What I will say, I mean, you might just be thinking of the single cover from My Hometown. I do love the implication in that intro spiel that the audience is probably all going on the naughty list because they didn't cheer loud enough.
What would y'all rate this?
I want to hear what you guys think first.
I walked away with a 4 out of 5.
Me too. 4 out of 5. Yeah, solid 4.
I think it's not surprised I'm a little higher. I'm at that 4.5 level. Now, I will say 5 out of 5 is a very exclusive club for me. I feel like our rating systems are weighted a little differently. Like there's like maybe 10, 15 albums ever in my perfect score club, but Born to Run is one of them. But yeah, this is definitely in the top tier, unquestionably. It's cool 4.5, nothing to shake your head at.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Nothing to sit on your ball cap about.
Nothing to whoopee cushion about. Nothing to
No. Nothing to blow big man at.
But anyway.
We want to thank you greatly for spending your time with us this week, listening to Going Off with special guest, fully involved Mark. That feels weird. Should I just like say your name, or is that what you'd rather?
The branding is inconsistent because the music project is fully involved. The handle is fully involved Mark because that's the name of the project, and then my name, and then Mark Berman is like my name that I would like put on like credits and stuff, and then Mark from Fully Involved is what fits in the character limit on the TikTok screen name, and so it's kind of just like a bunch of like a dozen permutations. Just search Fully Involved Mark on places and you'll find something eventually. And if you just want very specific classic rock memes mostly, though I do listen to new stuff too. Like for example, I've been going all in on Beach Boys memes recently, where I sold a bunch of stickers that say Mike Love fucking sucks in the Pet Sounds font. And I put out like this batshit 5-minute theory about a 77 album of theirs. It's a whole conversation.
Boy, yeah.
But I also put out a Bruce thing while this album was on my mind. I put out a thing related to his song Atlantic City from Nebraska.
Yes.
And these memes are all like kind of low effort when you actually look at them, but like the more shit posty they are, the more likely they are to, actually go somewhere. So
you know how the internet goes.
yeah, exactly.
And of course I got to back sell our Going Off Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/going off for all your album request needs.
Patreon.com/rapcritic if you want to see the new episodes, and I'm also uploading a playlist now, exclusive stuff. I just did the Weird Al best of his parodies chronologically, so I put them in order of like when the original songs would come out, as well as doing like his original songs, because I feel like Weird Al doesn't get enough respect on his name for being a comedy person who's able to still make such great art with it, and as well it's like the absolute best of, so it's none of the stuff that was like, oh, that's kind of funny, like, no, this is the absolute best. If you showed this to your friend, this is what would get them to laugh type of shit, like when I'm in curator mode, I go hard, you know what I mean? So
listen, I was at the Ill-Advised Vanity tour last year. You're preaching the choir right now, you know what I'm saying?
I wanted to go to a tour date, but I didn't end up going to see it. I wanted to though.
And
we're coming up on 10 years on a release.
Yeah, I should say for the record, I didn't really give like a straightforward plug. TikTok, Twitter, at that handle Fully Involved Mark, or I put out a single in 2021 and there's going to be another one coming up. I got a record coming up under the name Fully Involved. You can look that up on whatever streaming place. And that is the more streamlined version of the plug that I should have said 5 minutes ago. Okay, carry on.
And all your links and everything are going to be in the description anyway, so if people want to scroll down on either Spotify or YouTube, you'll be able to see all those delicious links.
Oh, and for my specific, requests, if you want to do song requests or album stream requests, ko-fi.com/rapcritic, as well as, movie requests and new rap album requests, specifically new shit. So, that's how we delineating it. So get with it. Act like you want it. That's the end of the podcast. I'm on like fucking 4% on my phone. We got to end this.
Nice. Folks, it's Going Off, and we will catch you again next time. But until then, for Going Off, I'm Muse.
And I'm Rap Critic, and
was I supposed to say and I'm Mark? Like
I kind of wanted you to, but I definitely should have told you that.
Yeah, let's do it.
That was my mistake.
Yeah, let's do it. You.
I'll do Muse.
I can't sleep and dream about it. There, I said it.
Yeah,
I said it once in this.
All right, let's go.
Until next time, for Going Off, I'm Muse.
I'm Rap Critic.
I'm Mark.
And you're an American, eh? Well, then who's the president of the United States? Oh, it's that game show guy, Bob Barker?